to everyone joining us live, and to those who will watch this recording later. Today, we delve into one of the Bible's most poignant stories, the parable of the Prodigal Son. This tale will not only help us better understand its characters and moral concepts, but also draw parallels with our lives today. Before we begin, please like this video to help it reach more people and spread the stories of the Bible. Thank you, and let's get started. The parable of the Prodigal Son. Found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 to 32, this parable starts with Jesus telling the story of a man who had two sons. The younger one asks his father for his share of the inheritance, an act that could be seen as disrespectful in that culture, as he desired the inheritance while his father was still alive. After receiving his share, the young man travels to a distant land, where he squanders his fortune on extravagant living. As his wealth evaporates, a severe famine strikes the distant land, forcing the son to work in degrading conditions, feeding pigs, a profound blow for a Jew, given the impurity of these animals under Jewish law. Desperate and starving, he decides to return home, hoping at least to be accepted as one of the hired servants. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. 15 So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. 19 I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' 20 So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick! Bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat, so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' The return and forgiveness. As he is still far from home, his father sees him and, moved by immense compassion, runs to meet him, embraces, and kisses him. The father then orders the servants to bring the best robe, a ring, and sandals for the son, and to prepare a great feast to celebrate his return. The father's actions symbolize unconditional forgiveness and the joy of regaining something precious that was lost. Here, we see a powerful image of divine grace, where repentance meets unconditional acceptance. The resentment of the older brother. In contrast to the father's joy, the older son, who had always stayed with the father and followed his orders, feels aggrieved and unjust when he sees the reception his brother receives. He complains that he never received such recognition, despite his loyalty and hard work. The father tries to console him, explaining that all he has is also his, but it was necessary to celebrate the return of the younger brother, because he was lost and has been found. This moment highlights the challenges of forgiveness within families and the difficulty in accepting grace when extended to others who may not seem to deserve it in our eyes. Moral of the story. The parable of the prodigal son teaches us about mercy, forgiveness, and restoration. In today's context, it challenges us to reflect on our pride, our judgment of others, and our ability to accept people back without resentment. It's an invitation to meditate on the depth of love and compassion, not just within our families, but in all our relationships. In the Gospels, there are other stories that echo themes of reconciliation, mercy, and returning home, which are central in the parable of the prodigal son. Here are a few. The story of Joseph and his brothers. In the book of Genesis, chapters 37 to 50, the story of Joseph is rich in themes of forgiveness and reconciliation. After being sold as a slave by his jealous brothers, Joseph rises to power in Egypt. Years later, when his brothers come to Egypt in search of food during a famine, Joseph finally reveals himself to them and forgives their transgressions, providing a powerful scene of family reconciliation. The reconciliation of Jacob and Esau. In Genesis 33, Jacob prepares to meet his brother Esau, from whom he had fled many years before after deceiving Esau and stealing his blessing. Jacob fears Esau's wrath, but instead, Esau runs to meet Jacob and embraces him, showing forgiveness and acceptance despite past transgressions. The return of David after Absalom's rebellion. In 2 Samuel, chapters 19 and 20, after the death of Absalom, who had rebelled against his father, King David, the king returns to Jerusalem. Despite the betrayals and conflict, David shows clemency toward those who rebelled against him during the revolt, including forgiving Shimei, who had cursed him. Thank you all for joining us in another biblical story. I hope today's studies inspire each of you to seek reconciliations where necessary and to offer the same grace we hope to receive. And what about you? What would you do in such a situation? Do you think it's unfair, or do you believe that everyone should have a second chance? Leave your thoughts in the comments of the video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel Bible and Stories of Faith to be together again. Until next time.